Hi, I'm Mark Randusky, G-Force Intelligent Lifting Device Product Manager from Gorbel. Today we're going to talk in this video about the importance of the end effector part of the solution when you're using an intelligent lift device like the G-Force or the Easy Arm product from Gorbel. So in this case right here, we have a total solution that is the underhung Gorbel Easy Arm on a Gorbel crane system, and then down to the end effector solution, which is picking up a tire. And we're going to see that in a second here. If you were to take and give this total responsibility to the Gorbel distributor, they would give this total solution and they're responsible for making it work. I can tell you from experience, there are very few companies out there that have the capability to pull off this total solution and get it working the first time, and we know that's critical to production. So I'd encourage you to hand that off to your local distributor and let them be the single point of responsibility for that. Okay, so let's get right into this end effector tool right here. So what we have here is an outer diameter electric over air pneumatic clamping tool. So what this is going to do is pick up this tire in this orientation, and it's going to transport it and drop it back off in the same orientation. I'll show you what I mean by electric over air. If I'm going to lift this up using the infinitely variable up-down control of the G-Force itself, and I'm going to show you I can unclamp. And what I'm going to do here is there's two button electric control, and the two buttons I'm pushing right now are actually electric control switches that operate solenoid air valves. So every time I press those two buttons, they're going to clamp or unclamp, okay? So if I press one button or the other button, it won't work individually. It's two-handed control, so both hands have to be occupied and on those buttons to either clamp or unclamp. Now I'll show you this too. When I lift up, I cannot unclamp. If I press those two buttons in the air, that is where the electric over air control comes in, and this is actually the G-Force making this end effector tool more intelligent by not allowing it to drop as I am in the air. So if I set this back down again, I press those two electric switches, and now the clamp opens again. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of turn this tool around, and I'll show you the front end of it and where the control comes in. So if I'm looking here at this, what we call our input-output block, okay, so our I/O block right here. This is where the electrical interface is taking place. Now, part of the integration solution, the part of this that actually comes from Gorbel is this I/O block and the yellow cabling. All the other piping, the tubing and everything would be through the integrator, the integration portion part of the solution. And you'll see if I just press one of these buttons right here, you won't see anything happen. If I press both of these buttons, you're going to see on the block, input number 2 will light up. So input number 2 is our clamp and release request. So it toggles back and forth between clamp and unclamp every time I press both of those switches. So input number 2 is the one that is the input, it's set for the input. Output number 3 is what's going to the solenoid air valve here, which is actually controlling the two cylinders. So what we've done here, now if I lift this up again, now once I'm clamped, I can lift up, I can press those same two buttons again. You'll see input number 2 turning on, but you'll see that output number 3 will not turn on. And that's where the intelligence of the IQ model G-Force can be used. And this block, again, this I/O block is part of the IQ model G-Force that allows you to do that type of control. So this is inhibiting me from dropping in the air because the process is looking at the weight of the tool, sensing the weight of the tool, and not releasing the part as long as it's in the air. So now I can drop that back off, and I'm free to clamp or unclamp as long as that tool is unloaded. And I'll show you this too, is if I were to have an unloaded tool in the air, I can clamp or unclamp. You'll see those lights lighting up. Okay, but again, if I pick up the end effector tool, I mean the tire that is, with the end effector, and I lift that up, now you'll see input number 2 coming on, output number 3 is not allowing the release of that tire. So that makes it completely safe, and that's the ultimate goal here. So one of the things I want to mention is there's a lot of variability with end effector tools like this. This is one version. Now pretty much every application is some sort of customized solution. Now here we have an outer diameter clamp. It could be for a different part. It could be inner diameter clamp. It could be vacuum. It could be magnet. There's a variety of different things that you could do. Also, if I wanted to actually lift this, this tire up and upend it. Say I wanted to lift it and I wasn't just transporting in this orientation. I wanted to upend it to a vertical position so I could load it on, maybe assemble it to a vehicle. I could do that also. It would require the integrator actually rearranging the center of gravity, but they can certainly add that function in. That's a very typical thing that can be done. Also, if you didn't have to have a high-low reach, you'll notice on this particular end tool, there is this balancing cylinder. The great thing about this balancing cylinder is it's set so that wherever you leave it, it stays right where it is. So that's a function of this. Also, that balancing cylinder has a regulator on it. So if you ever needed to change the length of this handlebar, change the weight of it, change the configuration, you could actually change that regulator so you could make it no matter what weight or length or size of that the handle would be, you could make that so it will go up or down wherever you wanted it to. And then what we get from that articulated design is the ability to go high and low, and you'll see my hands are relatively in the same position whether I go high or low. That's what that articulating arm does. But say that I didn't need that. Maybe I've got a conveyor that's here and I just need to lift up and move over and transfer it to dunnage or back and forth or something like that. I wouldn't maybe even need that articulated arm. I could take these controls, I could put them more central to here so I'm not standing off the part like that. So there's a lot of variability in the end effector, and again, every application is slightly different. So one of the things I wanted to point out also on this tooling is right here on these side pieces. And by the way, the quality of this tool you can see is very good. This is all aluminum design, very lightweight. A couple of things, ergonomics are key because that end effector is so light I can easily move it around. Also, you want the end effector to be light because you don't want to be eating up the capacity of your lifting device with your end tooling. You want to leave that overhead, that capacity overhead to pick up your actual load. So by having a lighter tool like this, you might actually be able to use a lower capacity lifting device than if you were to have, say, a 100-pound tool here. It would take away 100 pounds of your lifting capacity and you may have to upgrade to the next level. So it's really good to have a really nice design like this, all very ergonomic and lightweight. Also, if you look here, you can see the quality of the design. It's got these nice slewing bearings here, and you'll see both sides of this have these 4-point contact cylinders, articulating pads here. What that does, it's a self-centering guarantee of 4-point contact every time you grip that tool. So because they have rubber grips here, or rubber pads gripping a rubber tool, these aren't necessarily going to slide real well. So what you want that tool to do is come in, always grip at 4 points of contact no matter how you grip that tool, so that you always pick it up and have a nice safe grip every time. And I'll show you what I mean by that. If I come in a little off center on this tool and I clamp it, it'll still clamp. You'll see there's 4 points of contact at all times on that tool, no matter whether that tool is exactly centered or not. I have good positive control of that part in the air every time because of that design. So what I'd like to do now is just go back and talk a little bit about this IQ I/O block control that we talked about here. Right now we're using, on this I/O block, we're using anti-drop tooling functionality, but there are other out-of-the-box functionality assigned to this I/O block. We have an input here, input number 4. If you were to have a switch hooked up, you could have an auto home point that would always go to an auto home position. You could also do for float mode. Let me show you first of all what float mode is. Say I need to lift up this part and I need to get positive control of the part. I want to get off the handles, but I want to get my hands right on the part. I can actually put this into float mode, and float mode allows me to actually grip the part itself and lift up or down. I can actually go to any point on the tire or the tool here, and with just upward, a little bit of upward or downward force, I could have very good positive control of this tire. So if I needed to set it down in a very specific spot, I could do that. So one of the other things I can do here is on this I/O block, there, with the IQ model, there is a function here that allows you to do a dual load float weight, or dual float load weight, which would allow you to actually switch back and forth between an unloaded tool and a completely loaded tool, 2 different float mode weights without ever having to come out of float mode. There's also some interesting things like pass-through input-output points. So you could actually put an input here, run this through our communication. There's just 2 lines of communication here. This is a CAN bus distributed I/O block here. So that means all these 8 I/O points on this block are communicating through just a couple of wires here back to the processor. So I can actually turn on 2 different points here out of the box that will, these 2 inputs down here will turn on 2 outputs up at the actuator in the easy arm of the G-force, and then you can use that for control up top for, say, a tractor drive or a parking brake or something like that. So that gives you a lot of functionality there. And I did want to mention again also that again this is all based on the IQ model. So a lot of these anti-drop functionality that we're talking about is IQ specific, but the float mode, the up-down speed and control, all that is available with the Q model. And the only thing you have to do with the Q to make this adaptable with the Q model is have the integrator partner go ahead and make this all pneumatic control. So instead of being electric control, it would be direct pneumatic control, and you could use this on one of our Q model G-forces or easy arms. The Q model is having all the functionality available that I showed you, the float mode, the speed. The only thing that the Q model does not have is the input-output functionality of the IQ model. Okay, so in summary and closing, primary purpose of the video was to talk about the importance of this key component of the end effector tooling as part of the total solution. Hopefully we did a great job of that. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your local Gorbel distributor, or you can call in to Gorbel directly and we'd be glad to help you out. Also, just wanted to again make the point that it is very important in the end effector part of the solution to make sure that you're using a very experienced company that's got great experience and a lot of good successes in end effector tooling. I understand sometimes there's a need to want to do everything yourself, and that's great. And if you have those capabilities, go for it. But I'd always actually reach out and involve your Gorbel distributor in that design if you're going to do that. But I think it's always best to look for the total solution to come from one spot, one point of responsibility. And I'm very convinced of that. So again, here's a great example of the total solution that you can get from your local distributor, and I encourage you to do that. Once again, thanks for watching the video. I'm Mark Brandusky, and we'll see you next time.